Morning, folks. Today was a busy day. One of my bosses came out and helped me move some gravel and chopped some weeds, and I moved some dirt, changed some plow teeth. What else did I do? Moved the irrigation pipes. Seems like there was something else too, but anyway, busy. I didn't really film any of it. It was all just stuff that needed to get done, none of it very interesting. I'll sure be glad when this fair is over. You know, it's fun, but it's a lot of work. Getting ready for it's a lot of work. We're still, I don't know, 4 or 5 days away. I've still got a ton of stuff to do and worn out already and hadn't even started. So Saturday, I believe it is, we have a horse show, 20th. I don't know, I got my list here, but I don't think there's anything going on this Sunday. So I can get a little bit done then, but then after that, pretty much non-stop until the 30th. The 29th is the end of the fair, but the 30th we gotta go around and kind of start the cleanup. So lots to do. So just got back home and Cindy says, I got you something at Rags and Wags today. I said, you did? She goes, yeah. She didn't get me this, Bodine got me that. But a jackalope. It's one of them rabbits with horns, you know. Well, she found me a field guide to the North American jackalope. Never seen a book like this before. Hold on a second. Okay, so I'd be very surprised if any of you don't know what a jackalope is. The jackalope with antlers. I think the first ones had antelope horns, and they've since been deer horns. But it says, what is a jackalope? A jackalope refers to both males and females of a distinctive species of hare, a mammal that looks like an oversized rabbit. Jackalope males grow antlers from the frontal bone of the skull that resemble miniature versions of those more commonly found on deer. Both male and female jackalope have oversized ears that provide excellent hearing, as well as elongated rear feet that allow for superior speed and traction on the ground. Jackalopes are typically larger and more powerful built than their more common rabbit or hare counterparts. Opportunistic omnivores, they can be found in pairs of free-ranging groups throughout North America. All jackalopes are wild yet wise, mysterious yet knowable, magical yet real. Are you ready to meet the jackalope? A jackalope fossil. American jackalope. This is their range. So the female ones are the ones you see all the time. They don't have the horns. Lifespan. Under optimum conditions, jackalope can live for an unusually long period of time. While typical jackrabbit might expect to live up to 5 years in the wild, a jackalope can survive for twice that long or even longer, depending on subspecies. The age of some trophy American jackalope bucks have been estimated at more than 20 years. Okay, so I had a friend who has sadly died. Uh-oh, who's that? Dang it! So anyway, my friend Pete Stamper, who is, like I said, since died, and I miss that guy. He was so much fun. But he used to live in Wyoming, and they were butchering chickens one day, and a lot of them were roosters. And the back end of roosters' feet, they'll get that big long spur. In fact, I used to have one. I don't know where that is, if I even still do. But anyway, they'll get big long spurs. Cindy had one rooster. I bet those were 3 inches long. Most of them are smaller than that. But they're kind of a big horn-looking growth that comes out the back of their leg, and they use them for fighting and whatnot. But anyway, so they were butchering these roosters. And Pete, he took and he cut off all those little spurs so they look like little horns. And then he took some rabbits and he shaved a little round spot on top of their heads and super glued them on. Then he took them to the bar and he convinced people that they were young jackalope, real jackalope, and that they were for sale. And people grabbed the horns and they didn't come off, but they were not solid. They wiggled around. And he says, well, of course they wiggle around. Don't you know nothing about jackalope? They don't attach firmly to their skull until they get about a year old. And these are young rabbits, or young jackalope. They're not rabbits, they're jackalope. He said they're young ones and they haven't attached to the skull yet. And I thought you knew that. Don't you know nothing, And he finally convinced them that, yeah, they really are. And then he had some pictures, like what's in this book, and of bigger ones that he'd found someplace. And he said, yeah, this is one I raised, and they've got to be 6 inches tall, and blah, 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 blah. And he sold these rabbits with rooster spikes on their heads, super glued to them. I think he told me $25 a piece. Then he never went back to that bar again. Oh, Pete was fun. He had antelope, not antelope, he had jackalopes, those ones. He had elk that he raised, bull elk. They were impressive. Big bull elk. He had fallow deer. He had the regular stuff like horses and mules. He had bobcats. He had a Canadian lynx. He had kangaroos for a little while, but they didn't last very long in the Idaho winters. They had some heat lamps for them, and they didn't make it. But what else did he have? He had some reindeer for a little while too. I don't know whatever happened to those either. But it was fun to go over to his house. He had all these neat animals and things, and you could see them right up close. And he had one named King Tut, and that was a big bobcat that he had raised from a kitten, really tame and playful. And I was over at his house one day, and we got to drinking some whiskey, and we ran out of whiskey. And I thought, well, that's okay. Have a beer or something. And Pete goes, well, I gotta pee. He goes outside. We were in his workshop. And he goes outside, and he didn't come back. And I thought, where's Pete? Where'd you go? And so I went outside to go see what he's doing. Here he is. He's laying out in the grass face down. And so I knew better than get within arm's reach of him. So I got a chunk of fence rail. It was probably that big around and probably 6 foot long, and I poked him with it. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, go away. I said, well, get up. Have a beer with me. Go away. So I thought, well, I ain't settling for that. So I whopped him with the fence rail. I didn't do it hard, but I whopped him with it. Of course, he's howling like I beat him to death. And his wife comes out of the kitchen, and she's got King Tut on a leash, and the cat sees him laying out in the grass, so it runs over and jumps on his head, thinks that he's playing, and starts chewing on his nose. So now Pete's screaming bloody murder, and Sheila's her name, and me, we were laughing at him, and I whopped him again with the stick, and he wouldn't get up, and I thought, well, I guess we're done, so I went on home. Next morning, he calls me up, and Pete had a pretty foul mouth, and he called me all sorts of dirty names, and he he says, I'm gonna kill you next time I see you. And I said, why? And he says, I'm all beat up, and Sheila says you did it. And I said, oh, I didn't hit you that hard. And he goes, well, you did hit me. And I said, yeah, a couple times with a stick, And he goes, well, you must have hit me in the face because my face is all beat up, my nose is bloody. And I said, no, the bobcat did that. He wouldn't do that, but you would. I told him, no, I only whopped you a couple of times. You're lying to me and I'm going to kill you. It took some convincing for him to finally realize that, no, it wasn't me. And Sheila finally fessed up to it. No, King Tut attacked you. He was a lot of fun, that guy. We had more fun and got into more trouble with him. And one time I think I've told this story before, but if I had, it's been a long time ago. But there was this fence, a barnwood fence, that he wanted to get. And he said, we were going to go and steal this fence. I said, well, who's it belong to? It don't belong to nobody, but we're going to go get it. And so I thought, well, we're going to go to jail? And he says, if we do, I'll be your special buddy. I said, Pete, I don't want you to be my special buddy. So anyway, so we're going over there, and we parked on the side of the road, and he starts tugging on the fence. So here comes a car. So he says, quit, turn your back to them, put your hands in their pocket. They'll think we're peeing. So we did, and we were laughing and having fun, and we pulled these boards off, and one of them had a big knot hole, about like that. They were nailed top and bottom with a 2x4 along both edges, and every time you pull them off, they had a bunch of nails poking out of them. We'd pull them off, throw them over in a pile, and so he's yanking on this fence, and it's got this big old knot hole. And I was just about to tell him, Pete, that's going to break, when it did. And he goes stumbling backwards, and he stepped on a nail, and he's hopping around on one foot and yiping, and steps on a nail with the other foot. And then he was really howling. I was laughing so doggone hard. Oh, it was fun. And the fence didn't really belong to nobody. The people that lived there moved out, and they were... it was a land swap deal, and I don't know it all, but it was fun. Anyway, like I say, I sure miss that fella. He could get into trouble, I mean, anywhere, in a church probably. It didn't matter where. He could get himself into trouble. And Sheila, I don't know how she ever put up with him, but she did, and she's a neat gal. I like her a lot. Well, anyway, Cindy says it's about dinner time anyhow, but I didn't have nothing for today whatsoever. All we did was work, and Cindy showed me this Jackalope book, and I thought, well, now I got something to talk about. See you folks tomorrow. Have a great day.